Alright, I'm here for my fourth deck talk. I'm here with Protolol once again. He's the one that brought you the Mana Ramp deck for my third deck talk. And today we're going to talk about his main deck. And that's kind of a hero AP slash quick. I don't want to call it Rusher, but it's a quick deck. And then it can shift into late game with hero AP. So, how you doing, Proto?
I'm good.
Good.
Yeah. Although I wouldn't call it much of a rusher deck. It's much more. It's a slower. It's mid speed deck.
Mid speed? Okay.
That's what you could say. It's not really built for early or late game.
Okay. So we'll start out with your hero. You've chosen Legia Bell. I've only got the level 0 here. You've got her maxed out at level 5. So
Yeah.
why don't you walk us through why you chose her and if what abilities you use and why she's useful.
So my first rationale for choosing Lagia was her second skill. Giving permanent AP to a hero is pretty nice, but for this deck, it's really recommended you get her to level 5 because of her third skill. Her third skill allows you to spend 7 mana, choose a creature, increase your AP by 2, deal your AP to that creature, and that creature deals its AP to you. And then you reactivate your hero again. So essentially, if your opponent has two creatures in defense, you can kill both of them. But that's not, I would say, the best use of that skill. The reason why that skill is so powerful is because you can use it as a burst kill. So when your opponent has lined up several defenders, let's say they have 5 defenders, and you attack with a finisher creature, you can, when they block, you can use Lagia's third skill to actually kill that creature and let the damage through. Now, it only goes to 2 AP, but you can increase that AP even further using the other hero AP cards in this deck. 2 notable ones are Vanguard and Relentless Attack. Vanguard gives you basically a free 1 AP. Actually, Random Flame also works like that. So you can have a free 1 AP on top of your original 2, so you have 3 AP with Lagia's third skill when you're at 7 mana. And when you hit semi-late game at 10 mana, you can use Relentless Attack with your hero skill and do 5 AP, which pretty much kills any blocker they'll do. Another reason that skill is so useful, it's because you combos really well with Dignity of the King when you get Valor for your hero. Not only will you be able to kill a creature using the skill itself, then kill a creature using your AP, but because you have Valor, you can kill a third creature or attack the hero for the final time. That's what I believe makes this skill more valuable than Torsten's final skill.
It's a very solid point. So did you have anything else to comment on the hero?
Yeah, the other 2 skills. The first skill is actually my second most used skill after the third skill. Being able to just sort of have a first Executioner of Prisoner serves the same purpose as the third skill when you kill off a blocker, but it is a little harder to use, although it's best used when you have like the opportune moment. So when, let's say, they choose to block for plane line rather than I'm not quite sure whether certain creatures are human, but let's say they just choose to block with a non-human creature that earlier in the game. And if you can go in for the kill with that, there's nothing wrong with using the first skill over the third skill. And the second skill is really just having that 1 extra AP. The longer you have out that 1 extra AP, the more damage you can do with this deck, because you increase every AP card you'll have by 1 AP, and that makes a huge difference, one thing.
That's a good point. I've seen just in my playing, I like my deck talk earlier was for tokens. I hate seeing Legia because then if she uses her skill, all my tokens are gonna die when they attack her. So anything with you can use it, defensively. They go to attack with a 1/1. You can activate it in response, and anything they attack with one
Yeah,
defense will die.
yeah.
So she's a very versatile hero. So all three skills actually serve a really good purpose
Hmm.
in your deck. So, all right, moving right along, we'll start with what you run for creatures. You don't run any level 1 creatures, so
Yeah.
you start curving out at level 2, and the first one that on your list is Assault Infantry Elite. Explain to me why you run, since it's not a rusher deck, how do you use her just to get in for early damage, or as kind of a remover, or how do you use her?
It's basically for this deck, you'll actually either on your second turn you'll either mana zone or you'll play on a trap. Either way, you're usually giving your opponent a little bit of a leg up early on in the game, so that you can pull something off like Dignity of the King. So, in order for this deck to work, you need some sort of good counterattack, and Assault Infantry Relay helps with that, being able to either control the board again, or it gives you some extra damage in, and they have to deal with your Assault Infantry, lose a creature themselves, and then you can do whatever you need to do next turn.
Okay,
So it's mainly there for that.
okay, so it works as a early creature removal if they play like a level 3/2/2 or something. That it works as removal until you can get your hero attack power ramped up, or if
Or
they
early pressure,
yep.
if you.
Oh, that's a good point. And if they don't play anything on their first turn, you happen to go first. It's just 2 damage, so you can
Yeah.
start try to race them.
It's just a very good standard rush card
That
for.
it is. It's usually running a lot of Aspire decks outside maybe control.
Mhm.
All right, the second level 2 you run is Rogue. How many rogues do you run, and how key to the deck is it?
I run 4 rogues. They're actually pretty key because early on in the game, any of your hero AP is going to be costing 2 mana. There's nothing that's less than that. So you really, and there's really not a lot of cheap hero AP. So rogue serves as your cheapest hero AP that also gets you a creature. Basically, most people use this as a 2-for-1, where they'll play Rogue out, use your hero to kill one of their small creatures, and then that's it. But when you play it with this deck, you're usually aiming to get Valor very early game. So not only will you get a Rogue out, you'll also get and a creature killed. You'll also do 1 more damage to your hero, or get a second creature killed.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, you also you're pretty heavy on the level 2s, but they all seem to be pretty key to the deck. The
Mhm.
other level 2 you run is Vanguard. How many do you run, and why do you run this particular card?
Vanguard, I run 2. This actually can be replaced with Assault Infantry depending on the playstyle that you choose. But because of its creature skill, it makes for really, really good pressure. Basically, if they put nothing on defense, you can keep on attacking them with Vanguard, and your hero will get 1 extra AP every single turn. Combine it with any other good hero AP card, you can start killing a lot of their high-level creatures, or just dealing massive damage, or both, if you have Valor. Also, when they have no defense, and you have a battle command with Vanguard, you can combo it so that they take, depends on whether it's turn even or odd turns, but either Vanguard can become up to 3 AP, and your hero will still get the 1 extra AP because Vanguard attacks. So let's say they play Master of Mind, it's an even turn, use Vanguard, attack, and then kill off their Master of Mind, and then go in with your hero for 1 AP plus whatever else that you're going to play that turn.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so now moving to your level 3 slot, you run Faithful Safeguard. How many do you run, and why have you chosen this particular 3 drop as opposed to maybe something else?
Um, for Faithful Safeguard, I run 2. This is mainly because the deck can't just be pure aggression. You do need to have some creatures that will survive killing off more than 1 creature, and that's where Faithful Safeguard's 3 HP comes into play. Another factor that caused me to play this one is that I run Crude Shields in the deck, and being able to restore those Crude Shields to give me extra SP really, really helps, especially when you're attacking with the hero so much. But there's only 2 in there because this deck needs to be fairly aggressive. but you just can't be pure aggression, so that's why you have some.
Okay, so you run 2 because you don't want to clutter your hand with it, but if you see it, you're always happy to see it.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay. Your other level 3 is Lonely Knight. This is a pretty staple card in almost any Aspire deck you play, control or not. But how many do you run, and how useful is it for your particular deck?
So uh, this is another card I run 4 of, and it's basically the reason why I chose it is 2 HP. It's not like a Flame Fist where it's 1 HP and it's fragile. And on top of that, of course, it's always used for pressure. You almost always want to get in at least 1 attack with each Lonely Knight, so it's best played with Battle Command, but without Battle Command, you can still put on a lot of pressure, make them put up defenders rather than attackers. And even if they are putting out attackers, they're going to have to somehow deal with your Lonely Knights, which can kill pretty much anything big that they drop on the top.
Okay, good point. So definitely a 4 of. Um, Moving on to your level 4, you run Ashy Slave. This has been a pretty back and forth card in the forums. People like it, people don't. Give me your thoughts on it, and how many do you run in the deck?
Alright, so I run 2 Ashy Slaves, and for this card, it used to be a bit better, since it could be used with Battle Command before the Battle Command nerf, to give out, 3 to 4 extra damage. But regardless of that, it's still very useful in this deck, even right now, because the extra 1 life is something that you can't do without in a lot of cases. So getting that extra AP helps a lot, and just having an honor attacker in general makes it a lot harder for your opponent to put out defenders when you don't, especially when you don't want them to put out defenders. You can put out Ashy Slave and they'll put out attackers instead because they want to deal with it right away. And by having them not put out defenders, that helps you when you want to get in damage with Lonely Knights or some of your other creatures or your hero.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I play Aspire Control myself every once in a while, and I like Ashy Slave because it's a targeted removal. At least on my end, because you can kill any 3 defense because they can't block against it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you need to kill a key defender, you can always do it like that, like a Plain Lion or something that can give you fits.
That's true.
So, alright, moving on to your 5 slot. You play Light Cavalry. This card pretty much explains itself. It's a 3/2 body that gives your hero a 2 attack power. But how many do you run, and why have you chosen this particular card?
So I run 4 of these guys. The reason why I chose this card, aside from that it was easy to get, it's one of the only creatures that gives your hero 2 AP. All of the rest tend to give 1. Swordman of Lunacy was another one that gives out 2 AP, but the difference between Light Cavalry and Swordman is that Light Cavalry can be placed into attack. You don't have to place into defense, and placing cards into defense is not what you want to be doing with this deck. Mainly you want to be putting out attackers, so Light Cavalry serves a much better purpose, and the 2 AP is always welcome. Plus, it's more than 1 HP, which makes it a lot better against Archon.
Alright, very good point. Alright, at your level 6 slot, you run Crimson Knight. How many do you run, and how useful is it in a hero attack power center deck?
I only run 2 of these. The main purpose these cards are for is that it's just a finisher. Many times you just need to have some extra AP. Let's say they're at 8 HP, and you've got 2 Lonely Knights, but they have 1 blocker. You'll need that extra Crimson Knight so that you can get in that damage quickly. So basically, I guess you could just call it a Battle Command plus Lonely Knight plus 1 HP.
Okay. Alright, moving on to your other card choices. We'll start with your cast and your burst spells. The first one you run is Battle Command. How many do you run, and how useful does it prove to be in your deck in particular?
With Battle Command, I guess run 2. I actually want to run 4 of that, but don't have the cards for it, so just 2 for now. It's pretty it's pretty good because you do need to use your creatures pretty quickly, so it helps a lot when you're playing with Vanguard and Lonely Knight, as I said before. But it also helps, let's say, when you're playing with a limited hand selection and maybe Lei is one of the only creatures you can play. So using Battle Command on that would help a lot because with creatures already on the board, you won't be able to get Rusher on Lei. But yeah, that's about all the use you get. Well, on top of Faithful Safeguard, that's about all the use you can get. So it's not extremely useful, but it's still quite useful.
Okay. Moving on to your next one. It's also a cast, and it's a level 2, and it's Overcrash. It increases your attack power of your hero by 2. I mean, it seems pretty self-explanatory, but how many do you run?
I run 2 Overcrash. This
Okay.
is it's just a good card to have. It's 2 mana for 2 AP. You can deal with most level 1 to 2 creatures, a few level 3 creatures, and you can get on. You can play it really early in the game, so it's just kind of nice to have.
I suppose especially if you can get Valor on turn 1. It'd
Yeah,
be pretty good
which
on turn
is
2.
which is part of the aim of the deck too.
Very true. Alright. So moving on to your level 3 slot, we've got Relentless Attack, and it's a level 3 that gives your hero attack power by 3. This is the first card in your deck that I've seen that gives attack power 3, because I don't think any creatures do. So,
Yeah.
how many do you run, and how key is it to your deck?
I run 2 of these cards. It's I think it really is one of the only cards that gives your hero 3 AP, but it is actually it doesn't look like a huge difference between 2 and 3 mana, but sometimes it's quite hard to use when it's at 3, especially early on in the game. So it's only at 2 because you don't want to get it too cluttered, and it's more for kind of near the end of the game where your opponent starts putting out bigger creatures that you can't kill with a combination of Overcrash and maybe Rogue.
Okay. Sounds good. Alright, moving on to next one. Run a level 4. You run Sacrifice of the King. How many of these do you run, and explain the purpose of how it works in your deck?
So I run 2 of these. My rule of thumb is just 2 of any field wipe that you're going to include in the deck because you don't want to overclutter your hand. You don't need field wipes early in the game. You just need them sort of near the end where your enemy starts piling up their defenders, or maybe they swarm the field with tokens. And basically, you tend to use this with military procurement to get a skill breaker, and then when you're going in for the finishing blow, you want to use this to sort of clear the board.
Okay, makes sense. Alright, moving on to your burst. You run Shield Charge, which is pretty staple in almost any Aspire deck played out there, but how many do you run, and how does it work in your deck in particular?
So there's 4 of these 4 shield charges, and you tend to use these against high AP or high HP cards that are early game. So things like Elvish Libertine or Devotees that you really don't want to waste maybe a rogue killing it, or like a assault infantry. Just use shield charge. It works great with even against stuff like Lesser Demon because you don't want to sacrifice your 3 HP just to kill a level 1 creature with your
Yeah, I'm
hero.
I play Cade myself as well, and I always hate seeing Shield Charge played on turn 2 against my Pale Baboons. It's so annoying.
Yeah, that's another good one to kill with your charge spell.
Yes, yes, it is. All right. At level 3 for your burst selection, you run Conflict of Richard. Go ahead, explain why you chose this card and how many you run.
Um, I run 1 Conflict of Richard. I actually wouldn't be running this card if I had 2 Ambition of Torsten. It's mainly used for the card draw, so that would be a second skill of Conflict of Richard. So, because you're going to be playing a lot of cards early on in the game, especially since you're playing creatures and spells and traps, you lose hand size pretty quickly. Even with shards, you won't catch up to your opponent, so that's where these cards come into play.
Okay, so you said you wanted it to be an ambition of Torsten?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Let me go look that up real quick because I don't have any myself. And
Mm.
show the audience what exactly you're talking about. Alright, see, Ambition of Torsten is the one level list, so it's only level 2, and
Yeah.
it really does for the draw 2 cards.
Hmm.
Okay.
But the 1 mana is pretty important, especially early game.
Yeah, definitely. Alright, moving on to your level 3 selection. You've decided to run Landfall. Kind of an interesting choice, I have to admit.
Hmm.
Go ahead and explain your reasoning behind it and how many you run.
So I've got 2 landfalls. There's 2 main uses for this. The first one is to basically just stop a defender for 2 turns. So let's say your opponent puts out a behemoth in the back, in the defense. And because most of your cards are level 3 or less, you don't want to actually have that blocked to you. So use a landfall, deactivate it for this turn and next turn, so that when you're attacking for next 2 turns, you won't have any problems with the behemoth. Only problem is it doesn't actually remove the creature, so you actually have to act pretty quickly when you do this, which is where the second use comes into play. It can be combined with the first use, but basically, landfall, if used on an even turn, will switch the creature zone. So either from defense to attack or attack to defense, and get deactivated. So if you have like a very aggressive, some sort of attacker that's very frightening, maybe like Hunter, you can put that into defense, no problem. Or you can pull out a defender from the back, like a behemoth that you don't want to have them blocking you ever with that, to the front. So it's got that use as well.
Alright, I can definitely see your reasoning behind that. Alright, moving on to your trap zone. I see you run Dignity of the King. And in your list that you gave me, you said it ran 2. Explain to me why you run this card and why only 2.
This card is actually pretty key to the deck, and I run 2 because I tested with 4, but when you get 4 in the deck, there's times where you just end up having too many of these in your hand, and you really don't want to draw another one after you've already used up 1. It's only ever going to serve you good once. So having 2 it's not bad. It's a pretty good balance. Maybe 3 would be better, but I just prefer 2 because after you use the first one, you're just going to mana zone the next one.
Yep, that's true. And Valor is very key to the deck, so
Yeah, you usually play this, either you shard zone on the first turn or you mana zone and play this.
Okay.
So that's going to be your first turn. Or second turn, after you shard zone and it goes into your mana zone, you play this.
Right, I gotcha.
It's almost always the first card you play.
Okay. The other trap you have chosen to run is Military Procurement.
Mm-hmm.
This deck's run just about in every deck too, especially if people can't get a hold of like KO or Joseph Sword or something. But explain to me how it exactly works with your deck and how many you run.
So this is it's mainly used to fuel Sacrifice of the King. So I just run 2 because I have 2 sacrifices. I'll run 2 military procurements. I don't need that much equipment in this deck. It's a deck for hero AP and equipment. And the hero AP tends to be the concept that you have until end of turn AP, not the item AP, which gives you until end of turn or battle. Meaning if you do a battle with anything, you're going to lose that AP. So that's why only 2. But you also get a benefit of having an option of getting a shield, scale armor, I believe that's called. So
Yep.
that's good when you're in a sticky situation and you need the extra SP every turn because you're running low on HP.
Yep, I could definitely see it being useful. Give your hero Valor, and then give yourself Absorption, kill a creature. Then when you go to attack the hero, you really don't need the Absorption the second time around.
Yep.
Okay.
Or you can just kill 2 creatures, but any damage that you stop is always good.
Exactly. Alright, the only item you do run is Crude Shield. How many do you run, and how does it intertwine with your deck?
So I run 2 Crude Shields, just like military procurement, it's not really a key part of that, but you do need it. It's mainly used for absorbing the 2 SP that you'll get from playing it, and more importantly, it gives you card draw. It's because, well, I guess I already stated the reasons for card draw being in the stack, but you do need a card draw, so that's one of the other reasons you have it.
Okay. Moving on to your shards, I see you only run 12 Force, and then you also run Brand of Flame.
Mhm.
Brand of Flame seems pretty obvious because it gives your hero AP +1 till end of turn, so it's a
Yeah.
free AP, which is always useful. So
Only problem is the kind of hand size. You
yeah.
start using a little bit whenever you play it, so that's a downside. But
So
it helps, especially when you're using Lycia's first skill.
saying you're only running 2, correct?
Yeah, because
Okay.
you don't really want to lose that much hand with this
So
thing.
you only run 14 shards. Has that proven to be an issue at all for you? Like you get shard drought and don't have enough shards to and wear yourself out pretty quick because you got a mana zone, or does 14 seem to be the correct number for you?
Well, 14 seems to be just about right because you do plan to mana zone, especially in the first 1 to 3 turns. You actually will want to mana zone probably at least once.
Okay.
So not having the shards is it's not too big of a deal, and that's where the increased card draw comes from. It helped you get either more shards or more cards when you don't have the shards to get those cards.
All right. So that's pretty much the
Also, I
entirety.
think I had a Bohemians in there too, right?
Um. Yeah, but you said in your current build you weren't running them because they weren't really working for you. So
Oh, true. But the reason I did splash them once is they sort of act as an overcrash that stays on the board,
yep, that makes
which
sense.
can really put the hurt on your opponent. But I found whenever I played it, they would almost immediately deal with the threat right away, and it
Yep.
never got any use. And dealing 1 extra damage to your hero and losing 3 mana wasn't worth
Yeah.
it.
I see. I'm an Archon. Like I said, when I first started, I played Archon, and I ran Raven or ran Familiar for the same exact reason. Because when it attacks, it's the same thing, but it's only a level 2/2/1 with Drifter, I believe. So,
Yeah.
if you the way the deck sits now, if are there any rares that you don't have, or anything that any particular cards you don't have that you would like to put in down the road when you get them, or is the deck pretty solid where it's at now, and you don't really plan on changing it much?
Well, this deck it needs improvement for sure, but it's hard to put my finger on like, what exactly needs improving.
Okay.
I guess you could say maybe trying to find stuff like Advanced Command of Richard. That would be pretty useful, rather than Sacrifice of the King.
Especially since you're on the Crude Shields anyway, main deck. You can probably get
Yeah,
rid of the military procurements in general and just bump up your Crude Shields to 4.
or you can just still run the Military Procurement because Steel Breakers still work pretty well late game.
Very true. So,
But you don't really need the full 2 damage. 1 damage is enough. Plus, you have 4 options of getting armor rather than 2 options
2.
of getting weapons.
Very true.
So that's the rationale
Alright.
behind it.
So, anyone that is like new to the game or is like a heavy psych player or something, if
Mhm.
they looking for something to play Aspire that isn't Rusher, because I mean that's a lot of the Aspire you play out there. I mean, you play something that's kind of off the beaten path.
Mhm.
Do you have any advice for maybe a new player that's trying to get into this kind of deck or wants to maybe dabble in it? Because most of the cards are pretty easy to get a hold of because most of them
Yeah,
are basics and commons. Do you have any suggestions or tips for when they play?
yeah. Since this deck is unconventional, it's mostly about your hero doing about 50% of the work and your creatures doing the other 50%. So almost all the time you're going to be killing a creature with your hero and then using your creatures to go in for the damage. And because your creatures didn't attack and get killed or damaged from the other opponent's creatures, you're going to have your creatures next turn to attack. So you keep board presence by sacrificing HP from your hero. But what's important to note is that you have to make sure your opponent doesn't get any sort of advantage on you, especially when you're playing against other Aspire decks that have Rusher. Since you play almost zero defense, it's very easy for them to get in for maybe a quick 3-4 damage and take you down to maybe 1 HP or even kill you. And 1 HP is a very bad position for you since if you can't play Crimson Knight, you can't play any of your splash cards, you can't play Assault Infantry, and that means you can't attack with your hero again. So if you ever get down to 1 HP, it's pretty much a loss on this stat. But yeah, you just have to be really careful of keeping a balance between your your HP, and making sure to attack with your hero and attacking the right creatures. You never want to attack a hunter with your hero.
Okay, that makes sense. So if you like math, this is definitely the deck for you. So
Yeah, it is pretty math-based. It is pretty math-based, I'll
yep.
admit.
So this has been Delusions and Proto LOL. I want to thank you again, Proto, for doing the second deck talk.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
I'll probably have the third deck talk with you as well. I know you're on a
The AP manipulation deck.
the AP manipulation creature AP manipulation deck. So we'll probably bring in the third deck before I start digging into more crewmates and picking the random about deck. So I want to thank you again for taking time out of your day to go through your deck. So if you have any questions about this or his mana ramp deck, you can get a hold of him in Proto LOL in game, or if you need me to get a hold of him, or if he happens to be on, I'm Delusion. So everybody, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.